Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Making It Personal is provided by Sarah Vocations Ministry. Learn more at joinserra.org.
Making It Personal with Bishop William Joensen on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.
Welcome to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. I'm Jean Till, and on today's show, our guest is Kenny Jensen, retired Iowa State Trooper from Greenfield. The people you meet, Bishop, when you are out and about, and their faith stories are amazing.
It's a wonderful thing. You know, you're just open to, all right, God, put me with whomever you would have me be with. And, we talk about making it personal, but just people open up their lives, and it's just incredible what there. And so Trooper Jensen will be one of those, and I think we look forward to it. St. John Greenfield, obviously we know what's coming up with that as the experience of the summer or the late spring with the tornado as well. But here we are on the 28th of December, the Feast of Holy Innocents, a kind of poignant feast in the wake of the joy of the Nativity and all that's there. For some, you're probably not going to be sitting in front of the TV this afternoon, are you, Gene, watching the Pop-Tarts Bowl with Iowa State in Miami? Or
what? Is there a football game?
There is a football game, 2 or 3 every day at least these days, so saturated with that. But so we will not put our hopes in earthly powers, but for some, that would be a wonderful thing to cap a great season for the Cyclones, too. So, but we're just continuing to absorb this great mystery and all the kind of stations almost along the way, the stations of joy that we encounter and all that's there. And of course, were it not for Mary, and as St. Gertrude says, that the Son of God landed through her ear. That's how the portal for his entry into the world. And of course, she had prepared this guest house all her life. Pope Francis speaks about that, how we each have to prepare a guest house for Emmanuel to come to us. And so, bridging all distances and coming to us in these simplest everyday realities of our life. So that humility, that prayerful disposition, I think she was probably very intuitive about the movements of the Spirit and those around her parents, obviously, Joachim and Anne, but how less than ideal circumstances. So Mary softens that, and that's what we want to be. We want to help people feel in those situations like they were received, they're respected, they're cherished just for who they are, and I think the ways in which we can do that. So hopefully people were able to kind of move beyond the kind of superficial, serial mentality that our culture can perpetrate on us in so many ways, and find that center, that place where we are. Because otherwise, there's no room left for Jesus, but no room left for our own heart, the Holy Father cautions us. And I think this is, that way in which God can speak to us. So maybe people were able to avail themselves of the sacrament of reconciliation prior to Christmas. We know sometimes logistically and the human factors, the lines can be long sometimes. I mean, one has to be persistent, but don't despair. I mean, the Christmas season is a wonderful time to give this gift to yourself, if not to other people on whom the relationships are maybe not quite so peaceful, not such a source of joy for us too. But of course, not just on Christmas Eve, but throughout the season, to find time to abide with Jesus, that Eucharist expands the chambers of our own heart so God's love can dwell, not just at Christmas, but every day of our lives too. So the way in which God comes in and, this little baby, so simple, so dependent, limiting himself, so even transforming the things that we think of as evils, dangers, or sources of suffering are in reality part of the pangs of the childbirth that maybe Mary did not experience. Our faith tells us that she who was without sin perhaps did not experience the pangs of childbirth, which are kind of the effects of that, but the way in which then he gracefully takes up our pangs of suffering and brings us in part of his plan, transforming them in a very powerful way. So tomorrow we'll be inaugurating the Jubilee year in the Diocese of Des Moines. We'll be at the Pastoral Center, a little warm refuge there, but we'll process across the street with the relics of the true cross that found in that cross at St. Ambrose, and we'll celebrate Holy Mass on the Feast of the Holy Family to begin all. So I know that scores of clergy will be there. We encourage our lay people to join us for this festive occasion so that truly we can become pilgrims of hope throughout the Jubilee year.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we'll be visiting with Kenny Jensen, retired Iowa State Trooper from St. John's in Greenfield, and all the stories he has to tell. You're listening to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network. Welcome back to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. On today's show, we're visiting with Kenny Jensen, a retired Iowa State Trooper from Greenfield, St. John's Parish in Greenfield.
Wow.
Yep.
Yes, what a great community that is. And that's where Trooper Jensen and I have crossed paths more than once, most recently in November at the big parish festival there that they always have in November. Always a delightful spread and good warm conviviality with that as well. So good to have you, Trooper Jensen. Kenny, well, thank you for making the time for us.
Good morning, Bishop.
Yeah, so we got the J&J boys here, Jensen and Joensen, all right? So
And Gene?
And Gene, yes, it's a trifecta, all right? So I think the chances I've had to chat with you, you obviously you're a man of great dignity, a man of great faith, and dedication to a life of service to our state, and obviously to your local parish as well. So the ways in which your calling, if it was, to the Iowa State Patrol, was this something that was in you early on, or is this something that kind of unfolded in your life?
No, this is something I've, as a little kid, even had a desire to do. Like you said, being in law enforcement, I would say is a calling. It's a job, and you get paid like any other job, but it's like, I would say, like being a priest or a teacher or a nurse. Deep down in your soul, this is what you was made to do. And I always felt this is what I wanted to do. And
did this run in the family, or was it just something you observed?
No, I grew up on a farm in southeast of Greenfield, and a small little town. As a kid, I always wanted to do right. I always believed right over wrong. And it's just something that just kind of come natural to me, and I just felt like this is a career choice I wanted to take. I just felt like this is what I was made to do.
Wow.
And when I was...
And never really wavered from that. That was pretty much a constant.
No,
right?
I had other jobs and stuff, and I was always telling my wife I really would have liked to have been a state trooper. I want to be a state trooper. And one day she said... well, then just go do it. and
quit talking about it, Kenny. Just go do it. Right?
Not a lot of discernment needed here.
you just don't have that confidence. I can't do that. So she said, if you're going to do it, then go do it. And she had the utmost confidence in me, and she willing to support the sacrifices of being a trooper's wife that you have to make, and never wavered. And thanks to her, I ended up where I was at. And
now, were you already in law enforcement, and then this was a further stage of it?
No, I was working for the REC in Greenfield. I had a real good job. But after my third try, I did get accepted into the academy in 1989. And after completing the academy,
I was ordained to the priesthood.
I was the oldest guy in the academy. I was 30 when I went through the academy.
Oh, man.
I got a little bit of a late start. Most of the guys were 18 to 22, 25 in that age, and I was the old guy.
Did they look at you as kind of the elder brother then, or
Well, yeah, but you go in with a chip on your shoulder, to prove them you can do just the same they can do. So, my first assignment was Ida Grove. I was in Ida Grove for 4 years, and then we had a chance to transfer back to Greenfield, back home, and then I spent the rest of my career Greenfield, Adair County, most of the time working Interstate 80 Adair and Cass County. So,
is that kind of stability in a posting typical, or is it unusual?
What's that?
Is that kind of posting, stability in Greenfield unusual, or is that something that as you get seniority,
When you first get assigned, you move away from your home area, but then you are allowed to come back to your home area, and just as there's openings, and wherever there's an opening, you can apply for it and move into it.
Okay.
So, but then, like I said, I spent the rest of my career here, and I did have, after getting into the patrol, I just really enjoyed what I did. I mean, it was like everything I thought it would be, plus more. And it is something that I just felt like, I enjoyed helping people in time of need. I enjoyed stopping people when they're doing something wrong. And I really always felt that I was doing God's work. I felt like this is what God had intended for me to do.
Okay, well, let's unfold that, and that is very captivating. That Interstate 80, I think it's sometimes just dangerous driving out in normal conditions, let alone in inclement weather with ice and everything else.
I've always said if people knew what's going up and down that interstate.
Well, exactly, and we'd like you maybe to kind of tease that out a little bit, because that pipeline of our country from San Francisco all the way to New Jersey. I mean, people are coming through from all over, and you see the license plates and everything else.
Was very interesting, and you would deal with all walks of life, all people from all parts of the country, and every day you go to work. And I think this one thing I enjoyed about being a state trooper. You think you're going to go do this or that day, and you might do it, and you might end up somewhere completely different doing something you have no idea what you're going to do. I always like the adrenaline or the not knowing just where you're going to end up that day and what's going to happen.
Now, is part of that adrenaline, the hint of danger, or just the mystery and the intrigue of it, or a little mixture of both?
It is a dangerous job, and working the interstate is dangerous just being on the interstate, But I've always had faith in God that He was going to protect me, and He was going to guide me, and I never was injured once in my career, and I always felt I had that protection with me all the time.
Well, and I even just think, as I'm speeding, as I'm passing a stopped vehicle, the trooper has pulled someone over and everything else, and there he is on the side of the vehicle. Those are dangerous moments anyway, coming up to a window in a vehicle, I understand. But then, the traffic that doesn't always get over, too. For it.
Yeah, you get a feel for what you're dealing with. And I tell new guys when you're training them, when you work this interstate, you're going to get hit. It's just a matter of time and how bad. We've all been hit up there at one time or another, our cars or whatever. That's just the dangers of working on the interstate. But and then we worked a lot of rural areas too and stuff. But my assignment most of the time was up on I-80.
Okay. You had related to me once, where you kind of following your intuition, and you kind of thought it'd be just kind of a humdrum day, and were prompted to make a turnaround and things, not because you saw somebody, doing something inappropriate. Can you share that with us? Yeah.
Yeah. An incident that happened to me one time. I was going to work one morning, and I went to work really early. That's our normal time. And I had no assignments that day. I was just going to go to the interstate, write tickets, answer calls, no real plans. And I got up to the Greenfield exit. Greenfield's about 13 miles south of the interstate. Got up to the Greenfield exit, and I had no plans. So I went east, and finally I just all of a sudden decided I'm going to go west. So I went west. And west of the Greenfield exit is the town of Casey and then Adair. And in between those two is the Adair rest area.
With the wind turbine blade sticking up in the sky. Yes,
with the big wind turbine blade. And this has been several years ago. This is before cell phones and stuff. But I always had a personal policy that you never drive by a rest area, you always drive through a rest area. And people like to see you go through. Some of your best arrests you're going to make are going to be in rest areas. And so I was going through the rest area. And I always had a knack for finding stolen cars. And I had a black Ford that was sitting at the far end of the rest area with Wisconsin plates on it. And I just ran it going through, and it came back on a white Chevrolet. Obviously had the wrong plates on it. So I swung around, come in behind it again. And I walked up to the vehicle. And in the front seat, I could see a man sleeping. Fairly muscular, big guy, and I could see prints and tattoos on his hands. And there's a young girl around 16 age sleeping in the passenger seat. So I got the VIN number out of the window and went back and ran it, and it came back a stolen car out of Wisconsin. And just then, and I'm working by myself. There's no backup. A lot of times as troopers, we work by ourselves probably 90% of the time. And just as I was running it and it's come back stolen, I could see he was waking up. And you never know who these people are. You don't know what you're dealing with, so you got to treat them seriously. So I just immediately got out, opened the door, stuck my gun in his ear. I kind of pulled him out of the car, got him on the ground, and got him handcuffed up. And young girl sitting in the car door was open. I pointed my gun at her, and I told her to show me her hands and do not move. So I got him handcuffed. I got him secured in my car. I got her handcuffed and secured in my car. And while we're waiting on a tow truck, I'm trying to figure out who he is. Well, he's going to be a tough guy. He's not going to tell me. He's not going to say. And I said, well, we'll just all go down to jail. We're going to sit there and work on this till we figure out who everybody is. And he looks at me and he goes, if I tell you who I am, will you let her go? And I said, absolutely. And he says, I want it in writing. I said, my word is better than anything you're going to put in writing. And he told me, and she told me her name and date of birth, and he's an escaped convict out of Idaho State Penitentiary. And she was a missing person out of Oregon. So we take him down there. I get him booked into jail, and so now I'm going to have to deal with her. And I get a hold of the agency that put her as a missing person, and they give me her dad's name. So I'm talking to her dad in Oregon, and we're trying to decide what we're going to do.
And this is from Greenfield. You're making these calls.
Yeah, we're in Greenfield. Yeah, okay. We're down in Greenfield. So he goes, if I go get an airplane ticket, could you get her to the Des Moines airport, and we'll fly her home? And I said, well, I really can't. I said, I got to finish up with the reports here on this guy. And I said, I'm responsible for 50 miles of interstate, and I can't leave my area without having coverage.
He's not an Uber?
I don't. What's that?
You're not an Uber that can deliver people to the airport?
No. So, I can't. I'm still responsible for this area, and unless I have somebody else covering it, I can't leave my area there. And he goes, do you know where Guthrie County is, or Guthrie is? And I said, well, Guthrie County is the next county north of Greenfield, or Dare County, and Guthrie Center is about 30 miles north. He goes, have you ever heard of the town of Casey, Iowa? And I said, well, yeah. I said, I picked her up 3 miles from Casey at the rest area. And he goes, my mom has a sister that lives in Casey, and she's never met her. And if you could take her to Casey, she would take her to the airport.
Remarkable.
So I said, absolutely. I said, we'll load up right now. I'll get her up there, and then she'll take her. So we get in the car, and we're headed back up the interstate, headed to Casey. And the whole time, we're doing this all morning. She's never said 2 words. All she's ever said, the only word she said is her name and her date of birth. So she's sitting there in the car, and we're driving north, and I look at her, and I said, you've had a busy morning. I said, you've had a gun pointed at you. You've been arrested. You've been down at the jail. You're going to go meet this aunt that you've never met before. You're going to be on a plane here pretty soon. I said, what are you thinking? I mean, obviously you're doing a lot of thinking here. What's going through your mind? She looks at me, and she says, I spent all night last night praying to God that somehow he just gets me out of this and lets me go home. And at that moment, I was humbled. It had nothing to do about me getting a stolen car or arresting a convict, escapee. This was all about God using me as a tool to help her.
And you had that sense at that time, even as you were doing that.
This overwhelming sense that this wasn't me doing all this. I was being used here by God to answer her prayers. And by noon that day, she was on the airplane on the way home.
Wow.
What a blessing.
And I've reflected on this over my career, over the years. And I think I've learned a couple life lessons from that. The first one being, no matter how bad it gets, I mean, if your world's spinning out of control, and no matter how bad things are going, you can always turn to God, and you can ask for help, and He's there, and He's listening. Now, He may not send a state trooper come knocking on your door in a couple hours, but He's listening, and He will take care of it. And And not only do we need to turn to God and pray in a time when things are bad, but also when things are good. When things are going on autopilot.
That's the one we forget. That's the one we forget.
For all the good things that are happening.
Yeah. Wow.
So, and the other kind of lesson I've learned too is we do God's work every day. It may be little things that we don't even realize we're doing. You might have a coworker that's having a bad day, and you might come in and give him a smile and a good morning, or you might be getting your kids ready for school. You know.
Wonderful.
We're here to be his.
Kenny, Trooper Jensen, we're going to have to take a pause, but thank you for the spiritual wisdom.
Yep.
Boy, more than we could have bargained for this morning, so thank you.
Stay with us as we continue our conversation with Kenny Jensen, retired Iowa State Trooper from Greenfield, and we're going to be talking about the tornado that happened and his role in that tragedy for that community. You're listening to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network. Welcome back to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen.
And Trooper Jensen, thank you, Kenny. Back here with the
You're welcome.
JJ&J team here, and good. So that story, very compelling. You, like many members of the community of Greenfield, you experienced something traumatic in a different way as that EF4 tornado swept in. Could you just share what that was like for you and your family? Yeah. So yeah.
We were home that day, and we were working in the house, and we didn't have the radio TV on when the tornado come through. And my dad's 92, lives in town, and it went right by our house. It just missed our house. And so we...
With the typical train, the freight engine sound?
Yeah, you know, when it went by at our point, it was rain wrapped, and we couldn't see it. And originally it just looked like a rain shower coming in. And then my wife said, the tornado sirens are going off. And she flipped on the TV, and it said something about Greenfield, and our electricity went off. So, but we could hear it. It was roaring and ripping and tearing, and my nephew, I said, that's a tornado, and it's going through town. So we jumped in the car or pickup, and we're just a mile east of town, ran in there.
Almost like a storm chaser then, huh?
Well, I was more concerned about my 92-year-old dad, you know,
right.
And seeing, you know, just getting in there to find out what's going on. And we come over this little hill, and the whole east side of town was gone. And we didn't get all the way into town. We had to walk in from all the debris. And as we were walking in, my brother called me, and somehow my dad had called and said he was okay. He'd been hit by a tornado, but he was okay. But as we walked in, it was dead calm, almost eerie calm, and people were starting to come out of their houses, crawling out, and we were walking in, and I'd already bypassed. You lose your landmarks. So I thought, well, I've already went by my neighbors, which I've known all my life, and they're an older couple, and he was blind, and we always talk to them when we're walking. So I went back to their house because they're hurt, they need help. And when I went to the house, all that was left was a foundation. The floor was gone. I mean, everything. The whole house was gone. And I had my nephew with me. I said, you might not want to come with me, but he did. And we found her a short distance from the house, and she'd been deceased. And then I found him also, and he was deceased. And I went and found law enforcement. They were starting to show up, and I brought them down. So we've got 2 fatalities down here. And I brought him down, and then once I got law enforcement with him, as you start working up the street, people are trying to help people out of houses.
And you had mentioned to me that you were kind of grateful that it was you who came upon them because you were used to dealing with a traumatic situation.
Once again, God sends you to do things. And I've seen a lot of that through my career. And I'm a little hardened to it, I guess, or used to it. I don't know how you want to say it. And I didn't want family members. I'm glad family members or other people weren't the first ones. It's like I was supposed to do that. Mm-hmm. And then we helped a few other people out of their houses that were trapped and injured people. And then I got to my dad and found out he's okay. And then we found out my wife's brother's house was completely hit in the country. So then we tried to get out to go find them. So it's simply amazing the amount of destruction. The tornado went through Greenfield in less than a minute. It was traveling over 70 miles an hour. And they said the debris was 40,000 feet in the air and 320 mile an hour winds. And
I know they found a school yearbook 80 miles away. So, I mean,
they found a Greenfield yearbook at Forest City.
Wow.
So
more than 80 miles. So yeah. Kenny, I'm sorry that we've reached the end of our time here, but these stories. But as that community puts its back together, you're one of the pillars.
It is coming back together fast. The houses are going up, and now it's an exciting time. Everybody's getting, and there's so much good has come through all this. People are stronger in faith than ever. So,
amen. Well, you are all our pilgrims of hope for us in this Jubilee year. So blessings to you, and I look forward to next time we get to chat. All right.
Absolutely. So thank you very much, Bishop.
This has been another edition of Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. Thank you to our guests and to all of our listeners in Iowa, Nebraska, Wisconsin, or Forest City, or wherever you may be, listening to the Iowa Catholic Radio Network and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network.
You can hear Making It Personal with Bishop William Joensen every week on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Making It Personal is provided by Sarah Vocations Ministry. Learn more at joinserra.org.